Since Todd Boehly and BlueCo took ownership of Chelsea in 2022, their transfer strategy has consistently attracted criticism. They have signed 52 players in just over 3 years, and the perceived scattergun nature of their recruitment has confused lots of people. But it does seem as though their plan might be starting to pay off. Chelsea secured their first trophy of the BlueCo era with the UEFA Conference League and Club World Cup in 2025, while Enzo Maresca steered them back into the Champions League with a 4th-placed Premier League finish. Maresca's reward for this is the chance to do what no Chelsea manager has been able to do since Thomas Tuchel, and build on the work of his first season. So how does he plan to do this, and just how exactly will Chelsea play football? When Maresca arrived at Chelsea, he inherited a team that Mauricio Pochettino had built to play intense, direct football. He was brought in to change this, promising the more patient style that he'd learned as assistant to Pep Guardiola. But Maresca didn't do this straight away. Rather than making radical changes from the off, he leaned into Pochettino's more direct approach to ensure that his tenure didn't start with too much upheaval. But as time went by, he began to mould the team into his preferred style. One of the biggest changes he made was adding more control into Chelsea's approach on the ball. Although Pochettino's chaotic approach often brought goals, it did leave them open at the back, with the 2023-24 campaign being Chelsea's worst defensively in the Premier League era. Maresca managed to remedy this by introducing more of a short passing style, which helped the team retain their shape when moving the ball forward. This made them better prepared to defend counter-attacks, which greatly improved their defensive record. However, last season also saw Chelsea struggling to score themselves. By slowing down their attacks, they gave opponents the chance to collapse into a low block more quickly. And while this did help Maresca produce the control that he wanted, it also exposed a problem. Chelsea lacked ways of breaking down low blocks. This wasn't just a tactical issue either. Many of the players that BlueCo have signed have struggled to adapt to this style. Even Cole Palmer, who's been Chelsea's creative talisman across the last few seasons, saw his form gradually tailing off as the campaign wore on. So the challenge facing Maresca, and by extension the ownership, is simple. They need to find different ways of breaking down low blocks on a more consistent basis, something which could go a long way towards closing the gap to the top of the table. And one way of achieving this could be through tweaking their tactics. When opponents played Chelsea last season, they found it relatively easy to defend against them in a man-oriented fashion. Maresca often set them up in a rigid box midfield, with 2 defensive midfielders and 2 wingers sticking tightly to their positions. This made them predictable, and as a consequence, easier to defend against. But in recent matches, Maresca has attempted to introduce more fluidity to his team. His midfielders have scope to drop out wide or push further forward during attacks, while the wingers have been allowed to float inside, as fullbacks take their positions out wide. This does mean that if Chelsea lose the ball, they are more vulnerable to conceding dangerous counterattacks, but as it stands, Chelsea's shape is far less predictable, making it difficult for opponents to track their players and subsequently harder to defend against. Of course, the tactics are nothing without the players, and it's clear that Chelsea see improving their depth as another way to improve. Take the left wing, for example, where Chelsea possess 3 first-choice options. Jamie Gittins is a touchline winger who boasts incredible physical gifts. Even against a low block, he can generate space to deliver a cross or a shot. Pedro Neto, meanwhile, is more of a wide defensive midfielder, which has proven useful in big games. Against PSG, he tracked Achraf Hakimi throughout the match and largely kept him quiet. Then there's Alejandro Garnacho, who profiles more like an inside forward, something that should prove useful in more transitional games where Chelsea can play more directly. In short, Maresca is armed with a variety of options in nearly every position, be it Liam Delap and Joao Pedro up front, or their wealth of options in midfield. This depth means that they're well placed to cope with gaps in the squad that will inevitably come up through injuries across the course of a long season. And finally, Chelsea have looked to find marginal gains in the form of set pieces. They've appointed highly rated set-piece coach Bernardo Cueva from Brentford, and his impact has been rapid, with 4 goals from corners in their first 3 games of the 25-26 Premier League season. So if Chelsea can sustain this form while improving their open play tactics and integrate their new signings, this could be enough to beat teams as consistently as their title rivals. And if that does happen, the 25-26 season might go down as the year that BlueCo's various and oftentimes confusing investments finally paid off. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is home to some of the world's best sports journalists, including David Ornstein, Daniel Taylor, Ollie Kay, Amy Lawrence and James Horncastle. With the latest transfer news and insight on every Premier League football story that matters, theathletic.com puts you inside football.